What's going on YouTube? My name is Mark and this is my channel Flex Marks the Spot. Today I'm going to be reviewing the rack mounted leg curl attachment sold by EliteFTS, made by William Strength. I've had this for about 6 months now and I've put a decent amount of usage into it. So is it any good? Let's find out. So this is the attachment up close. It's pretty decently sized, and if you've ever used anything by EliteFTS or William Strength, you know their stuff's pretty heavy duty, and this is no different. The rollers, they have a really nice grippy fabric and a really comfortable foam. Most of the attachment is also powder coated, so it does feel like, it's going to be pretty durable. It's not going to be, rusting on you. The powder coat is pretty gritty. It's not like overly gritty, but it's a lot more than, what's on my Rep Fitness attachments. So, I don't really anticipate any, durability or chipping issues there. And then moving on to the front, you have the weight horn, which is powder coated, so that'll probably chip over time since the weights will be, rubbing up against that. It did also have a weight pin that it came with to keep the weight from moving, I'm assuming, but it's really not necessary because gravity does most of that job. I actually don't even know where my weight pin is. I've never actually used it, so you really don't need that, but it was nice to include. Then you have this rubber stopper, which is a really nice touch as well. It keeps the attachment from banging into itself when it's using, and doesn't have it making any unnecessary noise. So that'll be nice for anyone else in the house that's there while you're working out. And moving on to the back, you have the pin, which it actually came with 2 pins, a top one and a bottom one. I only use the top one. The bottom one doesn't line up with my rack, but it's really not necessary. The sides of the edge here, they were pretty rough shape when I got them. They're pretty sharp, and they're scratching at my rack pretty bad. So I just filed those down and added some felt tape on the inside walls, and that that did the trick. And I don't really have any issues with that anymore. I know your rack's gonna get beat up over time, but this one was kind of scratching it up a little bit more than a normal attachment should. So just something else to keep in mind. I have a Rep PR 4000 clear coat, so I'm gonna try to keep that as pretty as I can for as long as I can. But otherwise, the inside is just a general attachment. Installing the attachment is super easy. You just pick it up with one hand, slide it on your post, and slide in the pin, and that's all there is to it. Same thing with the removal. As a standing leg curl, the standing leg curl attachment works phenomenally. After you get it set up at the correct height and you load your weight, all you do is slide in on one side and you do standing leg curls one leg at a time. It's really intuitive to use, so if you've never used one before, you won't have any issues with positioning or anything like that. First time I used this attachment specifically, I hadn't done a leg curl in I don't even know how many years, so I really underestimated how much it was going to affect me. So the next day after I used it, I could hardly walk when I got out of bed. So just a heads up on that for anyone who does pick this up. So this is not at all advertised to be a leg extension, but it works really well as one. Keeping it at the same leg curl height, I just throw a plyo box at the edge, and then I just sit in on one side or the other, and then I start doing leg extensions. The weight curve does not feel unnatural at all. It doesn't feel like a lot easier on the bottom than it does at the top. I think it's just because the way this is angled, but you can throw a band around the weight horn and your upright if you're really bothered by that, or if you really notice something. I've never had to do that, so just something to keep in mind. But yeah, this feels really nice and really natural to use, so no complaints here. When you're first setting up to do the dual-legged leg extensions, you do have to get a little up close and personal with that post when you're first setting up. But once you get in position and you actually start doing the leg extensions, it's really not that uncomfortable, and it feels really smooth and natural. You do have to kind of keep your legs a little spread out. You can't do close-legged extensions, but it's really not that big of a deal. Adding another 55-pound plate, you can see that even adding a little bit of additional load to this attachment, it still is really smooth and functions really well. I mean, it feels just as good as it did, with just a 25-pound plate. I'm not sure what the max weight capacity is on this, but here's where I kind of top out. You can probably add up to 5 or 6 metal 45s if you're using iron plates, so you'll probably end up maxing out before you max out the weight capacity of the machine. So, just a heads up there. In addition to having to straddle around the post when you're doing your leg extensions being annoying, the pin that secures the attachment to the rack can also dig into your thighs if you have a little bit thicker thighs. And if you're like right up against the post, like when I use it, it's not quite painful, but it does get a little annoying. And, it is something that you do notice when you're first using it. But I found that once I kind of get in the rhythm, I completely forget about it. So again, this wasn't designed as a leg extension, but, still works really well despite those shortcomings. In terms of direct competition, there really isn't too much out there. There is the Mule by Sorenix, but that's only for like 3x3 1-inch hardware racks. And on top of that, the weight's only distributed on one side. I've never actually used this, so I can't really attest to it, but I do know that having the weight on one side does leave a little imbalance feel when you're using it. Sornix makes great stuff, so I'm sure this one works a lot better than the one I've used, but that's the one advantage I think the EliteFTS version has over Sornix. Other than the Mule, which I've never used, and EliteFTS's version, the shortened lever arm versions are the only ones I've seen out there. Most of them being DIY options and other ones, made by other little fab shop type companies like this one. I have this one in particular, and I'm not a big fan of it. It just never felt quite right when doing leg extensions or leg curls, whether I was doing both legs or single legs. So I really don't recommend this to anyone, even despite this price point, which is a little bit more, competitive than EliteFTS's version. I'd say if you were in the market for something, rack mounted, I would 100% go with EliteFTS's version instead of, going over to one of these cheaper alternatives. So yeah. Even though this attachment is amazing and is something that's been missing from the home gym space for quite a while, it's not the easiest thing to buy at the moment. You can't just go to EliteFTS's website and buy it like you can most of their other stuff. You need to contact a sales rep, specifically Matt or Nate, and have them quote it to you. And then from there, it's another 6-week lead time. So that's a little bit of a barriers to entry in acquiring this. But if that's not a problem for you, I'd say go ahead and do that. I'll link how to do that in my bio or in the comments somewhere. So after using this attachment for 6 months, I can say that I absolutely love this thing. It works really well at what it was designed to do, which is a standing leg curl, but it also works really well as a leg extension, which is something it was not specifically designed to do. So it's an added plus there. On top of that, it is super easy to install and really convenient to store away when you're not using it. And beyond that, the price is pretty decent too. I mean, in comparison to like the Titan Fitness standalone leg curl leg extension machine, which I think is probably the next best bang for your buck solution for a home gym. This costs $375 in comparison. If you do have a different size rack than like 3x3 posts and you need to do something else like with the hardware other than like 1 inch or 5/8 inch, there is a little bit of a surcharge there as well. So just a heads up on that. But I mean, overall, I still think it's a pretty insane value for how well this thing works. So yeah, I mean, I highly recommend this to anyone in the market. And if you have any questions on them, just feel free to shoot them off in the comments or DM me or whatever. And then yeah, I'll link how to contact a sales rep as well. So from EliteFTS. So. Again, I can't recommend this thing enough, and thanks for watching.